All right. So today is the beginning of percents, and this is a concept you should be familiar with, but it's something that in life you want to be able to perfect. Um, quick couple of things, definitions here. Right away, what is a percent? It's something out of 100. Okay. Now, when we convert a percent to a decimal, right? So if I'm going percent, right, to a decimal. And remember, the only reason we have to do this is because when we calculate with percents, we have to convert it to a decimal. So we would just take the percent and divide it by 100. Okay? When you're converting a decimal to a percent, think opposite now, right? If I have a decimal and I want to change it to a percent, I basically take the decimal and I multiply it by 100. Oh, just multiply it by 100. Now, we can solve for percent problems using proportions or using an equation. With you, I'm going to try the equation first because in real life, that's kind of what you're going to do. And it helps out with word problems a little better. All right, so write the following percents as decimals. Okay, remember, when we go percent to a decimal, we take the percent, we divide it by 100. So 27 divided by 100 is 0.27. You could also think you move the decimal 2 places to the left. 8%. When I do 8 divided by 100, I get 0.08. If you move the decimal 2 places, fill in the empty space with a 0. Then 7.5%. If I take 7.5 divided by 100, that would give me 0.075. Okay. Here, decimals as percent. So we want to change this from a decimal to a percent. So we know we're going to take the decimal and multiply it by 100. Now, if I take this, I take 0.14, multiply it by 100, right away I get 14%. Or no, this time instead of moving to the left, you move the decimal 2 places to the right. So here, I can move 2 places to the right, or I can take 0.065, multiply it by 100, and get 6.5%. All right, and the last one, right, 1.6575 times 100 would give you 165.75%. All right. Now, these type of problems will help you with word problems dramatically. So it's very important to perfect these so we can move on to word problems. Now here it says, what percent of 25 is 17? Now in this case, you have to know that x is going to be your percent because you don't know that. Remember, of is multiplication. Is means your equal sign. So when I look here, I'm basically setting up an equation. What percent of 25? So it's 25x is, so equals 17. I'm basically going to divide by 25 and x equals, so what x ends up equaling 0.68. We have to convert that to a percent. So we're going to take 0.68, multiply it by 100, and it is 68%. Okay, I'm going to do the odds and then, okay, excuse me from that comment. Oops. All right, so what percent of 36 is 80, right? Hopefully we know that right away. What percent? We don't know that. So that's x of 36. So we know 36x equals 80. Now, we divide by 36. X equals 80 divided by 36 gives you 2.22 repeating. But if I take this and multiply it by 100, that would be a 222%, right? Right there. Now, what number is 15% of 80? Think about this. When we calculate with percents, we convert it to a decimal. So 0.15. What does of mean? Multiplication. So 8 times 88. So that number x is 0.15 times 88 gives you 13.2. What is 60% of 25? Right? 60% of 25 means x is 0.6 times 25. 0.6 times 25 gives you 15. Okay, so 1 and 2 are one type of problem, 3 and 4 another type. Now, here's the tough one, right? 20 is 12.5% of what number? So we know the number x is your variable. So when we set this up, it's 20 is tells us to put the equal sign. 12.5% is a decimal, right? Is going to be 0.125. And then of what number? Well, I'm going to multiply that by x. Now, how do I solve for x? I'm going to divide by that 0.125. And you would get x is 20 divided by 0.125. And that is 160. Okay, so again, you're just setting up an equation to determine if you're going to multiply or divide. So here, 65 means equals 62.5%, so 0.625 of means multiplication. What number? If I don't know this, I'm going to use x. And then I'm going to do 65 divided by 0.625. And when I divide, x is 104. I want you to pause the video, try the practice problems, and then come back and check your answers. So the first one, 115% of 60, right? Right away, you know you're going to do 1.15 times 60, and 1.15 times 60 is 69. So 7 is, right, 28%, so 0.28 times x. So x is equal to 7 divided by 0.28, which is 25. What percent of 225, right? So 25 times x is your percent, is 99. Now, 99 divided by 25 is 3.96. But I have to multiply that by 100 because that's a percent is a decimal. So it's 369%. Okay, so this should be the easy part of the assignment. All right, now flip to the next page. And we're just going to do these word problems real quick. Number 10. In order for a car manufacturer to put forward a recall, 22.5% of cars produced must present the problem. If Chevy sold 2,300 or 2,350,000 volts, how many would need to be present to present a problem in order for the recall to be put forward? Well, we're basically figuring out what is 22.5% of 2,350,000. Well, all you're going to do is change that to a decimal, and then of means multiply. And when we multiply 0.225 times 2,350,000, you'd have to have 528,750 cars present the same problem in order for a recall to be called. Okay. Google stock dropped $11.10 down from $346.15. What was the percent decrease? Well, what is 11 $11.10 is what percent of 346.15? Well, when I look at this, 11.10 equals what percent? So X times 346.15. Pretty soon you'll get pretty good at this and know right away, all you're going to do is take that 1110 and divide it by the 346.15. So 11.10 divided by 346.15, and you get 0.032. And I have to multiply that by 100 because I'm looking for the percent. So it's about 3.2% drop. All right. Next one, Ford stock increased 80 cents up from $10.30. What is the percent increase? Again, you should know you're going to take the partial amount and divide it by the whole amount. So I can set up my equation such as 0.80 is what percent of $10.30. So what am I going to do here? 0.80 divided by 10.30, and 0.8 divided by 10.3 gives you 0.077, which is about a 7.8% increase. Oh. Okay. The sales tax on a car in Cook County is 7.75%. How much tax would you pay on a $26,000 car? All right. What is, right, 7.75% of 26,000, right? So remember, anytime you do sales tax, all you're doing is changing the percent to a decimal. So we know that's going to be 0.0775 times 26,000, the value of the car. 0.0775 times 26,000 gives you $2,015, and that is correct. That's what you would pay in sales tax on a car. So a survey asked 220 students to name their favorite pasta dish. Find the percent of students who chose the given pasta dish. Okay, what percent chose macaroni and cheese? Well, think about it. If I give you a quiz and the quiz is worth 50 points and you get 40, what do you do to find your grade? You take 40 and divide it by 50, you get 0.8, multiply that by 100. So with these problems, it's the same thing. How many total students were there? There were 220. So how many out of 220 chose macaroni and cheese? 33. So I'm going to take 33 divided by 220, and you get 0.15. And if I multiply that by 100, you get 15% of the kids. What percent chose baked ziti? Well, that would be 16 of the 220, right? And 16 divided by 220 will give you 0.07. And when you multiply that by 100, you would get 7%. Okay? And the last one. The circle graph shows a shoe survey in which 500 consumers were asked what brand of shoes they preferred. We obviously know what you would choose. Definitely Nike, I'm sure, or the Adidas Boost. So when we look at this, how many consumers preferred Nike? Well, we're basically finding a percent of an amount. So all you're going to do here is figure out what percent and then multiply it by the number of consumers. So here, Nike chose 32%. So 32% as a decimal is 0.32. Multiply that by the number of people surveyed, which was 500, and 0.32 times 500 will give you 160